Hi, I'm Ken.
And I'm John.
And we're
all about tools.
Well, it's great to have you joining us again this week. We've had a very busy couple of weeks. There you go.
Be warned.
It's nothing to do with knives, this week's show. That's a statement, isn't it? Let's get rid of that. That's intimidating. We've had actually a great couple of weeks. We just got back from the show in Las Vegas, the Solid Surface Show.
Good show.
And I know you had a great time.
Yep.
You got to fly in early and fly out late.
Yep, Ken got to set up the show, and I got to fly in and just see what was set up. And actually, I had a lot of time to walk the show. And although a lot of people said it wasn't a very good show, but I thought it was really good. I think that the attendance for the economy was really good. The exhibitor participation was down a little bit. About 20%, and the show booths were smaller, but all in all, it was a great show. We did well at the show at Specialty Tools. We had a lot of new product to show, and met a lot of new people. It's great.
One of the great things was all of you guys that came by the booth, and there were quite a few. One of the great things was because the show was smaller, which is a letdown to some, but the people that came by the booth were able to stay there for a while and really talk about products, and we got to spend a lot of time with you guys and got to know you better. So it was really, for us, it was a great show.
It was a quality show, I think. Rather than a big show where there's 20,000 people go through and they just zip right through. The show was small enough and people knew it that they could actually spend time at the booth, and they came back and really started talking about a lot of the tools, which was really good.
Well, I'm bowled over by this whole thing.
All right.
How's that for a segue?
Is that a segue or what? Okay.
So yeah, tonight's show
is just bowls.
That's right. You got to have bowls.
You got to have bowls. Absolutely.
But it's going to be a great show. We're going to talk an awful lot about bowls tonight. But initially,
what kind of bowls?
The kind, not the kind you're thinking of, but the kind that you use in your kitchen, or bathroom.
We're going to talk about China bowls, and we're going to talk about solid surface bowls.
Notice how our sets changed too.
Yeah, our sets changed a little bit. We're kind of just hanging out here. Just thought we would kind of clean it up a little bit.
Well, spring cleaning, we changed
things.
things.
Actually, I lost my keys, and we just had to move everything to try to find them.
But tonight we are going to talk about bowls, and we wanted to take the beginning of the show to talk about the different types of bowls that are in the market. One, because we have some fabricators who call up, and they're always looking for a broader depth of or breadth of information, and so we want to share some of the differences in the types of bowls that are out there. Commonly, the types of bowls that you see or exhibited in the marketplace are, first of all, vitreous china, used commonly in bathroom applications. Those are the Kohler Caxtons, American Standard Ovalins, etc., that you're familiar with. Nice to have you back.
I'm doing an inconspicuous mic check.
You're so smooth about that.
Are we okay now? Does it sound like we're all right?
Oh,
okay, can hear you now. Okay, great. All right.
But that's one type of bowl, the vitreous china. Again, those are commonly used in the bathroom, and what they are is it's a clay bowl that is taken and put into an oven, fired,
right,
and then the inside of the bowl is glazed. You weren't going to help me out there, were you?
Okay,
Throw me to the wolves.
like doing,
like donuts.
Go to the pottery shop and do them.
Exactly.
Okay,
they're glazed.
Okay.
One of the things to really pay attention to, even with a vitreous china bowl, and anybody that's worked with them consistently will be able to tell you they're very irregular in their shape.
Yes, that's right, because they're fired.
Exactly.
Right.
So when they're handled and they're first soft, even though they're handled a lot by machinery, as they're placed into the ovens, they're still, because it is a soft clay product, it can subtly move.
Which will make it a problem to install them.
It can.
If they're out of flat or...
Inexpensive bowls definitely have that problem. I'm sure you guys, I can remember when I was in fabrication, we would buy a lot of bowls when we were doing a commercial job. We would typically buy foreign bowls because of the better price point. However, you get a lot of warpage in the rims.
Me again.
So you really have to pay attention on the vitreous china because they are not consistent, again, in shape or sometimes in mounting them, the rims themselves. They are still commonly used and will always be used in bathrooms. But you want to pay particular attention when you're making a cutout for a vitreous china bowl that you use the manufacturer's template. If you use their template to make your cutout, if the customer's unhappy with the bowl, then it is purely a manufacturer issue, not much you can do. And a bowl, well, we have a little one right down there This is actually a decorative one here. Let me grab it real quick and I'll show it to you. Oh. This right here is actually a hand-painted china bowl. And I can see it, and it's probably a little bit hard for you to see, but this is a very irregularly shaped bowl. Again, it's a hand-painted bowl. I believe this one's from Mexico. But consistency would be an important issue with this. As you can see, a little bit of difference here. But again, this is the type of thing that a homeowner will come up and say, "Hey, I need this for my house. I want it installed. You need to put it in my
just clip on
countertop."
back my belt some
This did not come with a template, so you'd have to create a template of your own. But again, the most important thing when dealing with the vitreous china bowl is that you're
I'm John.
No, you already did that.
I'm all charged up now. I'm all set.
The important thing is that you make a cutout that is completely uniform, because any deviation in the bowl can be hidden by the overhang of the top over it. But if you make a cut or a cutout that is uneven, there's no hiding that, and the bowl is not a way to justify it. Yeah,
So on this one, you're going to have an overhang, and then you're going to have like a bowl nose or something?
yeah, if you choose, however you want to detail the cutout.
Okay.
But the important fact that you're dead right about.
Now, let me ask you something. Why would this be painted on the edge? Would this not be designed for a drop-in bowl as well, possibly?
You might think that it would be that, but the problem is here.
Oh, okay. I
You
see
have
that.
the overflow that flushes out with the rim.
That would be a
so
problem.
It would be a real dicey game, because the chances of making this cutout look good. Now, in the foreign country it came from, that might be considered acceptable, but generally here in the U.S.,
Yeah.
I think you're going to have a problem with the customer. So yeah, it's truly not a self-rimming sink. It is definitely an undermount bowl,
Okay, great.
but attractive
Let me
nonetheless.
set that aside.
So vitreous china is one type of bowl. The next style of bowl that looks most like that is
Porcelain.
porcelain or cast iron. Now,
Or,
typically,
or metal.
that's a great point that you brought up. Typically, a cast iron bowl is a metal body that is coated with a layer of porcelain and glazed. It's a very heavy bowl and fairly costly.
Those are the bowls that we basically grew up with, though, big cast iron bowls.
And what do you remember always happened to those cast iron bowls?
They chip.
Chip, and they would rust.
Oh, yeah.
So you
definitely.
had a lot of rust in those bowls that we grew up with, again, because any cracks that were in the porcelain, the water would work the way through the porcelain. And
Is that why we are the way we are?
That's right. And the rust would just migrate up through the bowl. So they were extremely susceptible to staining.
Right.
They do rust. As far as chipping, I mean, they were kind of repairable, but really not. You could always see the repairs.
Yeah.
So porcelain bowls or cast iron, though they certainly have a substantial body and they're durable, you really have to pay attention to what you're buying. You really shouldn't use abrasives to clean it, although we always did growing up
Right.
because we didn't know any better.
SOS pads, man. Just
Tear it up, tear that finish up.
That's right.
But you definitely don't want to clean it with abrasives. It will stain, it will crack and chip, and is not really repairable. So there's limitations on there. A variation of that, which is really more to satisfy the builder's market, is
steel.
steel,
Yeah.
porcelain over steel.
Right.
And we've all seen those bowls, and we've seen those tubs. They tend to be a lot lighter.
Right.
They certainly
But
are far
they're-
more flimsy, and you have to
Right.
be careful handling them, because if you flex it at all,
It chips. It just cracks and chips right off.
yeah, you will
so
destroy
that's
the
a real
bowl.
problem.
So, but again, that's another undermount option, especially in the bathroom. You tend not to see those so much self-rimming.
But really, for the cost difference, it's really crazy to even consider putting one of those in versus putting in a better bowl, because they're not that much cheaper. There's not much difference between the cost in a good bowl and a lousy bowl. So,
Yeah, it's especially when you consider the longevity of the product.
Right, exactly.
When you're putting a sink in your house, that's not a 2 or 3 year item. Typically, you're putting a sink in your house, it's really the lifetime of the countertop. So
unless you have a wife that's a designer and
oh, you pay a price. So it's really important to pay attention to that, because like so many things that go into your sink, actually it's easier to change a faucet than it is to change a sink.
it is.
So as much as you're willing to spend on the faucet, you should be more so willing to spend on that sink.
Right.
So another thing that is probably more common, especially in the kitchen, than cast iron. Cast iron has really kind of waned in popularity in the
Right.
past few years. Is this right here?
Stainless steel.
Baby, is that?
Now this one's a little bit different on the rim than what I'm used to seeing as a kid, and that's because this is an undermount bowl, correct?
That is correct.
Where the self-rimming bowls that most people are used to drop into the top with the ring on them, correct? Okay.
Or, well, no, there are two types, or a couple types. You're right. There's a kind that uses a Hootie rim.
Hootie rim?
A Hootie rim.
Okay.
Not to be confused with Houdini. A Hootie rim. And that is you typically, again, you have a rim that catches the edge of the sink and holds it all in place.
Okay.
But that really was a design that really kind of fell out of favor, I would say, probably in the 60s. Definitely by the early 70s.
All right.
As we moved into the 70s, the wild animal. By the time we moved into the 70s, the design of a continuous rim was really firmly in place.
Okay.
So,
now that's the one that has the little square channel all the way around
clip
it.
rail running all
And you
underneath it.
your clips from underneath would pull it down tight.
That is correct.
Okay, all right.
And now there's some real important things to look at when you're looking at, especially a self-rimming sink. But in stainless steel in general, we want to highlight some of those. One, you really want to pay attention to the gauge of the steel.
Okay.
Probably the minimum gauge that I would put in a kitchen application would be 18 gauge. As you get to thinner gauge metals, as you get to, let's say, a 20, 22, and sometimes even thinner, the problem then becomes, you know, if you drop something in the sink, it'll, by dropping it,
rat here.
yeah, by dropping in the sink, you can dent the bowl more readily.
Okay. So the gauge of steel go thicker as the numbers go up?
No, it gets thicker as the numbers decrease.
Decrease, okay.
So 18 is thicker than 20, 16 is thicker than
Okay.
18, and typically 18 is considered the benchmark of a
Okay, that would be a good
fair
bowl. And this
quality
happens to be
bowl.
an 18 gauge bowl.
Correct. Now you can get some bowls in 16, and I've even seen some in 14 gauge, which is really getting heavy.
Wow,
And probably
okay.
heavier than you need in a residential application.
Yeah, I was going to say that would be more commercial, wouldn't it? Possibly.
In most cases.
Okay.
So you want to pay attention. You want to typically get an 18 gauge steel sink, which this is. Another thing you really want to pay attention to is the sound deadening instrument in it. And that would be this
Are
coating
we
right here.
Looking,
Now,
oh,
in
it's
this
a coating,
case-
not actually an instrument.
Well, well, it depends on how you use the word.
Okay, all
Now,
right.
in this case, this is a combination of two things. It has a coating on it, but it also has a sound deadening pad. Same
Oh,
thing
okay.
on the bottom.
All right.
See that right there?
So you're not going to have that tinny sound
if
when
you listen,
Okay.
those things help to take the ring out of the bowl, so you don't get this bing kind of sound.
Okay.
And it really
Now,
deadens it.
is there a lot of difference in the quality of stainless steel itself?
Oh, this can be quite a variation. First of all, it's really funny. The term stainless steel is a misnomer. Stainless does stain.
It rusts too.
It does.
I have a stainless steel sink that we put in. We put in a really beautiful farm sink, and we put a mat in the bottom of it to try to protect it. And when we lifted the mat a week later, it was all rusted on the bottom. Of course, fortunately, it wiped right out, but we don't use the mat anymore.
Because this is a ferrous metal. It is stainless steel.
Okay.
It is ferrous. It has iron in it. Now, to begin to mitigate, how do you like that?
Ooh.
No, to begin to alter some of the qualities so it's not so bad, you begin to add nickel to it, which
Okay.
changes the composition. So you really want to pay attention to the quantity of nickel that is put into the metal. Because that will obviously elevate the quality of the stainless steel as far as its resistance to staining and deterioration in that regard.
Okay, now this particular bowl is an 1810. And
Which
it's-
is a good blend.
So
It's a good blend.
it's 18 chromium and 10 nickel. Is that the way it is when it says chromium nickel? I'm looking at the board there, folks.
That's
and-
pretty cool the way you can read
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
That's your cheat sheet.
Yes, it is.
The,
But so now does that number change in a
Yes.
good bowl or a poor bowl?
Yeah, it can
Okay.
certainly change because, again, and this is a surgical stainless steel.
Right.
But, you know, one thing to think about when you go to the home center and you see those double bowl stainless steel sinks,
Right.
and they are $25,
Right.
that's not high quality.
Not high quality.
You're talking,
yeah, you're going to get what you pay for.
Exactly.
Obviously.
You're getting a very
Okay.
low quality.
All right.
You know, a really good high quality stainless steel sink, you can sometimes expect to pay easily $200 for.
Okay. Now, this particular brand, I just want to mention before I forget and we get away from it, is a Leonette stainless steel sink. And this was provided to us by
Chemcor.
Industries. And we thank you for sending the bowl out for us to demonstrate. It's a nice looking bowl.
Yeah, now, and the couple of things you just want to pay attention to with stainless is these sinks, most people don't realize, are actually stamped on dies.
Okay.
So the better the sink
So
is...
this was just a flat piece of stainless steel and they just pushed it out.
Yep. And then the What then happens, one of the things you want to pay attention to is on a lower quality sink, they will run the dies until they're literally worn out.
Okay.
And you'll notice inconsistencies in the bowls.
Because I'm sure they're expensive.
Exactly. And they'll just run them until they're just rattling together. But then the actual stamp pattern becomes inconsistent. You'll notice the radiuses aren't quite as clean and things like that.
Okay.
The higher quality the bowl is, the more often they change out on their dies to maintain a real good tight quality. The other thing to pay attention is the finish. This is a satin brushed finish. Some bowls are polished.
Ooh.
Yeah, and you had the. It's an ooh as far as looking good. It's an uh-oh as far as me taking
That's the
care
kind
of
of thing that looks great at the kitchen and bath show when you're walking around on the floor, but the first time you use it, forget it. It's
Unless you put mats in the bottom of it.
Exactly, and that's just going to rust. Right.
But anyway, and that's the issue with stainless steel. So we'll
Okay.
get this out of the way.
All right.
But stainless steel is very common, and they are a wonderful performing sink. I certainly wouldn't have any qualms about having one in my house if it were of sufficient quality. I would not buy an inexpensive one.
Okay.
And the great thing about stainless steel too is it is available in a myriad of shapes, sizes, depths. They're absolutely wonderful.
Okay.
So they're great.
Are we going to actually talk about the shapes of the bowls on the show today?
To a degree, we will.
Because I want to show that bowl. I think that is just the coolest bowl. No, I'm sorry. This bowl right here. I think this is the coolest bowl.
That's the coolest bowl.
No, is that
Yeah,
it?
it is, yeah, that's
Oh,
the
yeah,
coolest.
no, that's it. Okay,
But we'll get
that's
over
what-
there.
Okay,
We'll get over
all right,
there.
Very good. Okay.
We wanted to talk about stainless steel bowls. Stainless steel. We already talked about this. Solid surface bowls.
Right.
And solid surface bowls of what we've talked about so far are definitely the newest genre in the marketplace today.
Okay. But they're not a drop-in bowl.
No, they have been available in a drop-in fashion. DuPont made a drop-in style bowl back in the 90s. So, no, they have been, actually they made a drop-in style all the way back into the 80s.
Okay, so would that have gone into like a Formica
on
or a laminate top?
Sometimes, yeah.
Wow,
We definitely
okay.
sold them. I can remember DuPont when the 872 and the 871, and I believe also the 810 Vanity Bowl were all available as a self-rim at one point. And then DuPont did come out with a line of self-rim back, I think it was in the late 80s, early 90s.
Now, these are used primarily with a solid surface deck?
In most cases, or solid surface is undermounted in stone.
Okay. It's also in laminate now. I've noticed, especially at the show I saw some where they route out the wood all the way around, leaving the laminate, and put the bowl up underneath it, glue it in, and then route the laminate to the bowl, which is a nice installation. So I guess that's like a compromise on a lesser expensive countertop with still that nice built-in bowl look.
A high quality. And the real benefit to any undermount bowl as opposed to the self-rim, and that's why the undermounts have really taken over the market by storm, is you're able to wipe right from the counter directly into the bowl.
Right.
And so as far as cleanliness, as far as ease of usage and maintenance, you can't beat that under.
What about an undermount bowl like we were talking about with the China bowl where you have a lip? Do you have to worry about a buildup of bacteria underneath that lip,
Well,
or?
Hopefully the fabricator has used either what's that caulk line? The one that resists mildew. It has a mildewcide in it. It's microban.
I think it is microban.
It's microban.
Yeah,
it's
okay.
caulk with microban in it, or any sort of a high quality caulk that has a bacterial inhibitor.
Okay.
That's really what you're looking for, something
right.
that will resist bacterial.
Cool.
And that's usually put in quite a few of the high quality silicones. So yeah, that's the way of addressing any sort of an undermount. And any sort of an undermount, again, that you're going to apply to a solid surface or stone, you're going to have that layer of silicone to bond the two and seal it.
I keep looking at the board there on these stainless steel sinks, and I noticed their warranty covers rusting, which I think is unusual. It says warranty includes rusting, warpage, staining,
Well,
burning,
again,
cracking,
they have a
discoloration.
high enough level of nickel.
Okay,
in it,
so again, then the less expensive bowl may rust quicker because it's got a different content of nickel chromium.
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
It's a little bit more compromised. Again, very quickly before we go to break, I just want to just quickly highlight solid surface bowls come in a couple of different forms. We have this style right here, and again, we'll talk about this a little bit more later on. This is a full cast wall rim all
Right.
out of solid surface.
Now this one here is much lighter, and this is it's a fiberglass.
It's a fiberglass back.
resin. Okay.
What it is that bowl right there is a fiberglass backed acrylic veneer. So instead of
Okay.
being a solid wall like this bowl is just cast in a mold.
Okay.
It's a two-part mold. It's got a male and a female component, and
Okay.
and it's actually poured in and then finished off. So this is all solid surface.
Okay.
That style, which a lot of people feel is far more durable, and
Much
and to a
lighter,
degree,
much easier
and
to-
it's much lighter,
easier to
to work
handle,
with.
definitely.
Is essentially an acrylic wall that's about 3/16 of an inch or so, maybe a quarter of an inch. And then that outer wall, that by itself would be too thin to make a sink out of, but then they coat it all with fiberglass, and the benefit to coating it with fiberglass is it gives it greater impact resistance, it gives it more structural stability,
Okay.
and it substantially reduces its weight. So a wonderful option as far as getting a solid surface bowl.
And after the break, we'll talk about where all these bowls come from, manufacturer-wise,
Sure.
and then we will move on with how to install them.
Do you know where that Mexican bowl comes from?
Mexican bowl, I think it's made in China.
SpecialtyTools.com would like to take this opportunity to unveil our boldest new venture, epitomizing the glorious traditions held so dear by craftsmen throughout the centuries. Our informative and enlightening seminars represent the pinnacle in only the most professional of productions.
Okay, we're back. Oh, I'm sorry. We're just waiting on you. Like, not four. Whoa! Look at that. Works fine in the.
Actually, John, this is a shop cloth holder.
See, I told you he wasn't real bright, folks.
It's one of those clamps in our line that we've had for a long time, and you know, it has its uses, of course, but especially
Last week.
No. Chris said we did that for the promo. You're gonna drop this down. I'm sorry, folks. This is for laminating, plastic laminate.
We started out with a dog and we ended with Chihuahua.
Yes, like Santa.
And I look like a fool. Have a little shame.
Drop it in the water.
Are we going to go off?
I'm sorry.
I hate my job.